When have you seen the real world hit a spoiled brat? Simple and pure example for my part. There was only one coffee shop on my campus, operating out of the library building, and it was always crowded. You pretty quickly learned that if you wanted coffee before class, you got there 20 minutes early, grabbed a newspaper, I'm old, sue me, and took your time. It was always funny watching incoming freshmen crowd the line 5 minutes before their 8 a.m. and slowly filter out in despair as they realized there was absolutely no way they were reaching that sweet Sumatra nirvana in time. Cue this little freshman girl, dressed in the classic campus t-shirt, jean shorts, blonde ponytail coming out the ballcap starter pack, walking up, assessing the line stretching out the door, and boldly deciding to just sorta skip it. Now the baristas were usually pretty cool with people skipping for simple things, dropping down a quarter for some scantrons or a buck for a cookie, anything that didn't require interaction. Not this girl. She caught the barista's attention, while the previous customer was still paying, and went, "Hi, yeah, can I get a latte please? Like really quickly?" The line starts back there," replied the now slightly confused girl behind the counter. "But I have Klaus," whined the freshman. There was an awkward pause before the barista responded, "You are on a college campus. Are you freaking serious? Why do you think all these people are here?" "Back of the line." "Oh," was the only thing the freshman girl thought to say. As she turned to look at a line full of people staring daggers back at her, she looked not upset or embarrassed, but sort of enraptured by this newfound understanding she's just been imparted. It's like for first time in her entire life she realized that other people were in her way for reasons. It was actually kind of beautiful to watch, like a baby deer learning to walk for the first time. Better late than never. Spending $50 on food a day is not normal. College girl got cut off from her parents drinking and not going to class and had to get a job. She put on Facebook about how she's gonna go hungry and needs money. People offered her food and to make her dinner. She said, "That's okay, I just need about $40 to get through the day. I don't like to grocery shop." $40 can feed you for a week if you grocery shop. When the high school principal's daughter, who previously got away with all kinds of garbage behavior, vandalism, drinking, major bullying, got caught vandalizing a lecture hall in uni, she was unceremoniously dumped and banned. Parents whined for months on FB about their poor baby's unfair treatment and the fact that her applications to other unis were being denied. Sorry about the length. I was a school bus driver in the 70s. During height of court-ordered busing, so I ferried poor kids to the rich side of town, then rich kids the other way. Lots of entitled brats, but one stands out. Super entitled kid, constantly defying rules. Eventually I caught him with too many witnesses attempting to set a bus seat on fire with his lighter. School officials were called. Hearing with officials and rich dad, and he's banned from all buses rest of semester. Dad offers to pay for the damage and quietly accepts the punishment. Then comes the surprise. Next morning when I arrive at 6 a.m. to clean my bus, regular task every morning, rich kid and dad are standing there. Dad introduces me to my new personal bus cleaner for the rest of the year. He brings kid every morning and forces him to wash and clean the floors on my bus before taking him on to his school. By end of year, entitled kid is actually working hard and being friendly. We're getting along pretty well and I help him out sometimes so he can get into school. Kid turns out okay when all is over. Good move by his dad. When my brother was in school, he was horrifically bullied for being autistic, and his bully was the most entitled little shit I've ever had the displeasure of meeting. His father paid for boxing practice, karate lessons, and other martial arts. This made him think that he was the best at anything physical. My brother isn't overly fond of sports, and prefers to read in the library. As the typical nerdy kid, he's a prime target for bullies. One day when the bully had cornered my brother up against a wall, my brother finally decided that he wasn't just going to take it anymore, but he strongly dislikes violence, and thus would not be fighting back. Instead, when the bully tried to punch him, my brother ducked. 3 broken fingers and a trip to the hospital later. The bully's father finds out what had been happening. All his extra classes, training were cancelled. He had all of his electronics and games sold, and if he wanted to have a car, he would have to work for every penny himself. My ex-best friend was raised spoiled. His family wasn't very rich, but they still always tried their best to get him everything he asked for and never taught him to take responsibility for his mistakes. I'll write a list of the things he pulled after leaving school. Getting pulled over and one of his passengers wasn't wearing a seat belt was his fault for not wearing it. 2. Quit his job because he wanted more time to skate. Did this by going to his ex's and sleeping with her instead of going to work, then bragging about it on Facebook. Centrelink refuses to pay him because he's not even trying to get a job, and no place will hire him because of his track record. 3. Sexually assaulted a 14-year-old girl at a party. He was 21, somehow managed to get away with that. Also, this wasn't some massive drinking party, it was a family barbecue. 4. Assaulted a bouncer at a nightclub and then assaulted the police who tried to arrest him. Spent a week in jail for that. 5. Moved to Melbourne then Sydney and ended up being homeless for a couple years and is currently homeless in Germany. 6. Another time he was skateboarding in a Hungry Jack's car park and a policeman asked him to move on. Not sure how it got to this, but he ended up assaulting the policeman and taken to the station. His family had a friend who was a cop and stuck his neck out to get him released, and he then tried to sue the cop who arrested him for assault. Also, he had a 15-year-old kid with him at the time who was drunk and high, so as well as assault he was facing a charge of supplying to minors. 7. Caught a train from Sydney to Melbourne and didn't pay. Thought he got away with it until his mum got a $350 fine in the mail. He never officially moved out. She demanded he pay it immediately. Drove down for the day to ask for money with his girlfriend and his mother reluctantly gave it to him. A few months later his mother gets a bill for $960 in the mail because he never used the $350 money to pay the original bill. His mother tries calling him but can't get through for days, so she calls his girlfriend and she says they broke up a week after that visit and she has no idea where he is. 8. Also on that same train ride to Sydney his friends abandoned him and he freaked out and got arrested. In high school one guy was a real jerk to everyone. He had no sense of anyone but himself, and everyone kissed his butt because he was not only valedictorian of his class, but also star football, basketball, tennis, and track star. He was top dog for all the extracurriculars as well. He made my best friend cry multiple times just being an ass toward her, and she had the unfortunate luck of being in his grade. He was also known as a player, just dating whoever he felt was hot enough for him, but would also put out for him. He honestly thought that nothing bad could ever happen to him because he was just that special. He graduated high school and went to his school of choice and immediately came out as gay on social media. Not too long after that he got his first boyfriend. Before the semester was even finished, his boyfriend cheated on him and he flunked out of his college and ended up having to go to another school. Last time I saw him he was super polite and seemed to be rather humbled by his experience outside of our tiny town. His family had money, too. They weren't insanely rich, but he always wore Abercrombie and Hollister clothes and he bragged about how he refused to wear anything else. He also made fun of a lot of people who didn't have a lot of money, myself included. I don't know if that ever changed though. When I was working at a public library, we had a few local celebrities come in from time to time. Most of them were nice, but one had a real stick up his ass. He would bitch about having to stand in line, and about late fees, and about everything else. We would just say sorry. Those are the rules, or thank you for being patient, even though he wasn't. One day, he and I were apparently both having a bad day, and when I told him there was a limit on how many DVDs or video games he could check out at a time, he slammed his hands on the desk and raged. Do you know who I am? This is a grown-ass man. Mind, I was a little college student who barely looked old enough to drive. I was sick of his low-key bullying, so I just looked at him and said, "Yes, I do, Mr. X. And the rules still apply to you. Which of these would you like me to put back?" He was stunned. I don't think anyone had ever actually told him that the rules for everyone else did in fact apply to him as well. He was a little nicer after that. Not a lot nicer, but still. Trying to flex at a public library is some real low-level shit. You can't look down at me while you're trying to borrow games at the place I work. A kid in college was a roommate of a friend of mine. He was always bratty and spoiled but hung out with us as if he were a good friend, and we let him chill with us because sometimes he wasn't bad. Then one day we heard him arguing with his mom on the phone that he needed more money. From the ensuing argument we learned that he had, in less than 1 year, burned through 30 grand that his parents gave him for food and discretionary spending. Mind you, he was not paying for tuition, or lodging or his car with this money. It was basically just food money, as all those other things were also already covered by his parents. He was calling his mother some really nasty things, and hung up on her. Then his father called and they got in an argument, cussing each other out. At the end of that call he threw his iPhone at the wall and shattered it. This was the original iPhone. Turns out they cut him off and basically he had to drop out of school and drive back home out of state because he couldn't afford to do anything anymore and of course was too good to work a pleb's job. He added me on Facebook about a year later, and was a late-blooming 9/11 truther. Obama was president by this time, and the only thing I ever said to him on FB was a simple reply correcting one fact he was wrong about in his 9/11 conspiracy theory. He then posted like 4 replies in quick succession telling me to open my eyes, and then blocked me. Video of drunk college kid yelling at the cafeteria manager because he wanted bacon jalapeno mac and cheese. He hurls verbal abuse, pushes the manager, gets taken to the ground and realizes his mistake when the cops show up. Him yelling "I'm so f***" while being cuffed is super satisfying.